climate change worsens, it will become harder and harder to adapt to its effects. And mitigation is not effective alone because people need help now, and mitigation will take time. Together, adaptation and mitigation will provide immediate and long-term assistance to developing countries. For the World Bank, we urge that they expand their definition of humane, sustainable, climate-friendly food systems to not only land practices, but also livestock practices. We recommend that they internalize greenhouse gas emissions. We want the World Bank to take responsibility for the greenhouse gases they produce when implementing their projects. This could be achieved by applying a carbon tax to all future projects. The IFC needs to direct funding away from agribusiness. The IFC and World Bank fund projects that fund agribusiness and factory farming projects. Redirecting this funding to humane, sustainable, climate-sensitive systems will ultimately allow them to achieve their goal of reducing global poverty by adapting and mitigating climate change. We also urge that they fund projects that do not lead to deforestation. As we have shown, the World Bank funds projects that clear forests in order to make more room for farmland. Deforestation leads to land degradation, flooding, and the release of large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We want the World Bank to fund projects that improve our carbon sink and increase the amount of trees. This can be done through agroforestry, which combines forests and croplands, leading to healthy land. For the Green Climate Fund, we want them to apply direct access funding. The disbursement of funding should center on direct access, whereby the recipient country is able to access financial resources directly from the fund. In addition, the recipient country should be able to assign an implementing agency of their own choosing, instead of an implementing agency selected by the Green Climate Fund itself, in order to ensure funding is appropriately distributed. This will ensure that finance reaches the most vulnerable countries. The Green Climate Fund needs to secure appropriate funding. As of today, the Green Climate Fund is relying heavily on private sector finance. To correct this problem, they need to secure funding from both private and public institutions, as well as create incentives that encourage countries to participate with the fund. If the Green Climate Fund is able to secure appropriate funding, it will play an important role in bridging current funding gaps in agricultural finance. By securing appropriate finance, the Green Climate Fund can move forward on its mission of adaptation and mitigation funding by contributing to humane, sustainable, climate-friendly food systems. In conclusion, the World Bank and Green Climate Fund have the opportunity to set the stage for financial institutions and lead development towards a more sustainable future. In their funding, the World Bank and Green Climate Fund should challenge conventional factory farming practices by funding more humane, sustainable, climate-aware agricultural projects that will make climate change in agriculture a forefront environmental issue. By doing so, both these institutions will help transform the future of agriculture and the environment.
Hi, I'm Emily. This is Brittany, Judy, and Lizzie, and we're the gender group. So what is our project? Our group in particular was charged with the task of creating a lobbying package that fleshes out the links between animal agriculture and climate change in order to garner support from women and gender NGOs for UNFCCC policies related to animal agriculture and climate change. And we felt that the best way of garnering this support would be to not only make the connections between animal agriculture and climate change, but to also make the connections between gender, animal agriculture, and climate change. And in general, making these connections is important because a lot of them have not been fully researched, and while there have been links made between gender and climate change and gender and animal agriculture separately, there hasn't been a clear synergy between the three. So we demonstrate these links for women and gender groups and also provide them with suggestions for how they can create change on a number of different scale levels. So, women and gender NGO involvement. In our research, we were able to identify several reasons why women should be involved in the global discussion on climate change and animal agriculture. And there were some core reasons that we found to be most persuasive. First off, women and men have unique knowledge of and roles within the animal agriculture sector, but women's knowledge tends to be underutilized. Second, women make up at least 51% of the agricultural labor force worldwide, but they are not nearly as highly represented in positions of leadership. and are often not the ones who are outwardly perceived as being authorities in the sector, despite their substantial role in it. And lastly, in animal agriculture research and climate change research, there is often an emphasis placed on the fact that women are disproportionately impacted, and this is particularly true in terms of access to and ownership of raw and technological resources. So one of our goals for our project is to demonstrate how women, given their vast and diverse knowledge and experience, can and should be agents of change. And therefore we believe that it is essential to any climate change action taken within the animal agriculture sector that women and the gender perspective are actively engaged.
So our group's research has led us to highlight these 3 guiding principles that we would like gender groups to champion. A shift away from the industrialization of animal agriculture, decrease in the consumption of animal-based foods, be critical of scale dimensionals, local and decentralized systems are preferred. Bearing these principles in mind is intended to help prevent the adoption of policy that could provide some benefits in areas but compromise the rights of small-scale farmers and animals in others. Thus, gender groups need to safeguard these 3 principles to protect animals and marginalized stakeholders such as women, pastoralists, indigenous peoples, and small-scale farmers. Each of these 3 topics, food security, public health, and sustainable livelihoods, connect some of the current areas of focus for women and gender groups with realities in climate change and animal agriculture. These 3 topics were among the most prominent areas of focus while we were researching, especially with women and gender groups, so in a way they chose us. In our work, they serve as entry points in demonstrating the correlations between animal agriculture's impact on climate change and gender. The goal is to show the relevant conflict between climate change and animal agriculture already is to the lives of women and the work of women and gender NGOs in order to show that action is necessary.
So why is public health important to our work? First of all, women are disproportionately, Food security is crucial ground on which to engage women and gender NGOs. This is particularly because while women and men have different roles in relationship and knowledge of food security, women are often charged with determining what their families will eat and sourcing it. Just as animal agriculture negatively impacts climate change worsens food insecurity. For example, through drought and desertification, and the fact that soil health is harder to restore. Animal agriculture directly affects food insecurity as well. As the sector grows, more calories, which could otherwise go to feeding humans, go to feed animals. Greater demand for meat means more land conversion for feed, intensifying the sort of land degradation that is worsened by climate change. Adapting animal agriculture to climate change could not only benefit local food security, but also factory farmed animals whose confinement prevents the expression of their innate behavior and whose industrialized diet of grains often makes them sick. Since women are producers who could help alleviate food insecurity, food security is not only a point of connection between gender and women NGOs, climate change and animal agriculture, but also an avenue for change. So, why is public health important to our work? First of all, women are often disproportionately impacted by and more vulnerable to disease due to limited access to resources and control over these resources. For example, access to health care and involvement in public health-related decision-making and research. Industrialized agriculture poses a huge threat both to human health and animal health because it has led to an increased incidence of foodborne diseases. This is largely due to overcrowding of animals, unsanitary facilities, and poor waste management. Many developed countries have already industrialized their food systems, and developing countries are quickly following suit. When areas begin to industrialize their food systems, we observe a nutrition transition, where people's preferences for and consumption of meat, in particular red and processed meat, increases. Increased consumption of these products is associated with an increased incidence of chronic illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Although these diseases are often called diseases of privilege, privilege due to their prevalence in developed countries. 4 out of 5 of chronic illness-related deaths occur in low and middle-income countries. Studies have shown that women living in both developed and developing countries have a greater chance of dying from chronic illnesses when compared to men, sometimes as high as 30%. In terms of controlling animal disease, women are in a position to be stewards of biosecurity, ensuring human and animal health. Women in developing countries are usually the ones charged with overseeing and performing tasks related to the care of small ruminants and poultry, small ruminants such as goats and dairy cows. This puts them in an ideal position to identify, diagnose, control, and prevent animal disease.
Women's livelihoods are closely connected and affected by the relationship between animal agriculture and climate change. Animal agriculture is a major source of income for about 200 million rural poor. For the estimated 70% of the world's poor who are women, livestock is one of the few sources of income. Women typically engage in small-scale farming and are in charge of small animals such as poultry. However, the lack of ownership and control of land, animals, and other resources puts women at a huge risk financially. Women are estimated to make up over 50% of the agricultural labor force worldwide, but they own less than 10% of the land. When a woman's product becomes profitable and commercialized, men in the household may take control of the activity, leaving women's livelihood in greater danger. Factory farming corporations are also often guilty of taking away